The morning mist hung heavy over Windsor Castle as Camilla, queen consort, made her way through the ancient corridors toward the royal vault. Her footsteps echoed against the stone walls, each step deliberate and purposeful. She had waited years for this moment, years of playing the patient wife while watching Catherine gain favor and influence within the royal family. The Queen's Vault, a legendary repository of royal treasures and documents, had always been shrouded in mystery. Hidden beneath the castle's foundation, it contained centuries of royal wealth, precious artifacts, and most importantly, documents that could shape the future of the monarchy. Camilla knew that within those secured chambers lay items that rightfully belonged to the direct line of succession, items that would one day pass to Prince George as the future king. As she approached the vault's entrance, Camilla's mind raced with possibilities. The death of Queen Elizabeth II had left many loose ends, many traditions and protocols that needed updating. In the confusion of the transition period, she saw an opportunity to secure certain items that she believed should be hers by right of marriage to the king. After all, she had endured decades of public scrutiny and criticism to reach this position. The heavy oak door leading to the vault's antechamber creaked open under her touch. The air inside was thick with the scent of aged wood and metal polish. Tapestries depicting centuries of royal history lined the walls, their colors muted by time but their significance undiminished. Camilla paused to examine a portrait of Queen Victoria, remembering how that monarch had also faced criticism and eventual acceptance. Her personal secretary, Margaret, followed closely behind, carrying a leather portfolio containing what Camilla claimed were authorization documents. These papers, hastily prepared by a loyal aide, granted her access to certain items in the vault for safekeeping during the transition period. The documents looked official enough, with proper seals and signatures, but their legitimacy was questionable at best. The royal vault itself was protected by multiple layers of security. Beyond the traditional locks and keys, modern technology had been seamlessly integrated into the ancient structure. Motion sensors, pressure plates, and biometric scanners worked alongside centuries-old mechanical safeguards. The royal family had learned from history's lessons about protecting their most precious possessions. Camilla's interest focused particularly on a collection of jewelry that had belonged to Princess Diana. These pieces, according to royal protocol, were meant to be preserved for Catherine, and eventually passed down to Prince George's future wife. However, Camilla had always felt that as queen consort, she should have access to all royal jewelry, regardless of its previous ownership or intended recipients. The vault also contained documents related to various royal estates and properties. Some of these properties had been specifically designated in Queen Elizabeth's will to eventually pass to Prince William and his children. Camilla believed that with the right interpretation of royal law, some of these properties could be redirected to benefit her own position and legacy within the family. Among the most valuable items in the vault were ancient crowns and ceremonial objects that dated back to medieval times. While these items were technically owned by the Crown Estate and could never be sold or given away, their custodianship carried significant symbolic weight. Whoever controlled access to these items wielded considerable influence over royal ceremonies and traditions. As Camilla descended the narrow stone staircase that led to the vault's main chamber, she felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. The walls around her seemed to pulse with the weight of history, each stone a witness to centuries of royal intrigue and power struggles. She knew that what she was attempting was risky, but she also believed it was necessary to secure her family's position within the monarchy. The staircase ended at another secured door, this one made of reinforced steel disguised to look like ancient wood. Here, the modern security systems were more evident. A small screen displayed various options for biometric verification, and cameras monitored every movement. Camilla approached confidently, knowing that her status as queen consort should grant her access to most areas of the castle. However, the vault's security system was more sophisticated than she had anticipated. While her biometric data was indeed in the system, access to the royal vault required additional authorization that went beyond her standard clearance level. The system had been designed this way specifically to prevent unauthorized access, even by high-ranking family members, without proper documentation and approval. Margaret stepped forward with the portfolio of documents, ready to present them to whoever might challenge their authority. The papers had been carefully crafted to appear legitimate, complete with official letterheads and what appeared to be proper signatures from relevant palace officials. However, they lacked the specific codes and verification numbers that would be required for vault access. As they waited at the sealed entrance, Camilla reflected on her journey to this moment. From her early days as the other woman in Charles's life, to her current position as queen consort, she had fought for every inch of recognition and respect. Now, with the opportunity to secure valuable assets for her legacy, she was determined not to let protocol and bureaucracy stand in her way. The silence in the antechamber was broken by the sound of approaching footsteps. Multiple sets of boots clicked against the stone floor in perfect synchronization, indicating the approach of royal guards. Camilla's heart rate quickened as she realized that her presence at the vault might have triggered security protocols that she hadn't anticipated. The guards' arrival would mark the beginning of a confrontation that would test the limits of royal authority and protocol. Camilla steeled herself for what was to come, knowing that her actions in the next few minutes would either secure her family's position within the royal hierarchy or potentially damage her reputation beyond repair. The sound of approaching guards grew louder, their disciplined march echoing through the ancient corridors like a drumbeat of impending confrontation. Camilla clutched her authorization documents tighter, preparing to assert her authority as queen consort against whatever obstacles lay ahead. The lead guard who emerged from the shadows was Sergeant Thomas Hartwell, a man whose family had served the royal household for 3 generations. His grandfather had protected King George VI during World War II, and his father had been part of Queen Elizabeth's personal security detail for over 30 years. Thomas himself had been specifically assigned to vault security because of his unwavering loyalty and his intimate knowledge of royal protocols. At 45 years old, Thomas possessed the perfect combination of experience and physical capability required for his position. His military background included service in Afghanistan and Iraq, where he had learned to make split-second decisions under extreme pressure. More importantly, he understood the delicate balance between respecting royal authority and protecting royal assets from potential misuse. The moment Thomas saw Camilla standing before the vault entrance, his training kicked in. While he recognized her status as queen consort, he also knew that vault access required specific authorization that went beyond normal royal privileges. The royal vault's security protocols had been established by Queen Elizabeth herself, with input from legal experts and security specialists, who understood the need to protect items designated for specific heirs. "Your Majesty," Thomas said with a respectful bow, his voice firm but courteous, "I must ask about the nature of your visit to the vault today. Protocol requires advance notification and proper authorization for all vault entries regardless of rank or position within the family." Camilla straightened her shoulders, drawing upon years of experience in dealing with palace staff who questioned her authority. "Sergeant Hartwell, I am the queen consort of this realm. I have every right to inspect the contents of the royal vault, particularly items that may require my attention during this transition period following Her late Majesty's passing." Margaret stepped forward, presenting the portfolio of documents with an air of official importance. "The queen consort has proper authorization," she declared, opening the leather folder to reveal papers bearing what appeared to be official seals and signatures. "These documents grant her access to specific items that require immediate attention." Thomas accepted the documents and began examining them carefully. His trained eye immediately noticed several irregularities that would not be apparent to someone unfamiliar with authentic royal documentation. The paper quality was correct and the seals appeared genuine at first glance, but the authorization codes were missing, and the signatures lacked the specific flourishes that he had been trained to recognize. While reviewing the documents, Thomas discreetly activated a small communication device that connected him directly to the Palace Security Command Center. Within seconds, he received confirmation that no vault access had been scheduled or authorized for that day. More importantly, he learned that the specific documents Camilla was presenting had not been issued by any authorized department within the royal household. The tension in the antechamber grew palpable as Thomas continued his examination of the papers. Camilla watched his face carefully, trying to read his expression and gauge whether her deception would be successful. She had counted on her position as queen consort to overwhelm any resistance from palace staff, but she was beginning to realize that vault security operated under different rules than the rest of the castle. Behind Thomas, 2 additional guards maintained their positions while remaining alert to any sudden movements. These men, Corporals Williams and Davies, were both veterans of elite military units who had been specifically chosen for vault duty because of their ability to remain calm under pressure while following orders without hesitation. Their presence served as a clear reminder that the royal vault was protected by more than just locks and electronic systems. "Your Majesty," Thomas said after completing his examination of the documents, "while these papers appear to be official, I must verify their authenticity through proper channels before granting vault access. This is standard protocol that applies to all visitors, including members of the royal family. I'm sure you understand the importance of maintaining security around such valuable assets." Camilla's eyes flashed with anger at what she perceived as insubordination from a mere servant. "Sergeant, I am not all visitors. I am the Queen Consort, and I am ordering you to open this vault immediately. These items are part of the royal collection, and I have every right to inspect them as I see fit." The confrontation was escalating exactly as Thomas had been trained to expect. He knew that high-ranking individuals sometimes attempted to use their position to circumvent security protocols, and he had been specifically instructed on how to handle such situations. His duty was to protect the vault's contents, not to accommodate unauthorized access requests, regardless of who was making them. "Ma'am," Thomas replied with unwavering respect but firm resolve, "I understand your position, but vault security operates under direct orders from His Majesty the King and cannot be overridden without proper authorization. I would be happy to contact the appropriate officials to verify these documents and arrange proper access if everything is in order." Margaret attempted to intervene, raising her voice slightly in an effort to intimidate the— "This is highly irregular treatment of the Queen Consort. The king will hear about this disrespectful behavior toward his wife. These documents are perfectly legitimate, and your refusal to honor them is an insult to Her Majesty's authority." Thomas remained unmoved by the threat. Throughout his career, he had learned that protecting royal assets sometimes required standing firm against members of the royal family themselves. Queen Elizabeth had personally emphasized this point during his security briefings, explaining that the vault's contents belonged to the crown estate and future generations, not to any individual family member. The standoff continued as other palace staff began to take notice of the unusual activity near the vault. Word spread quickly through the castle's communication networks that an incident was developing in the lower levels. Within minutes, senior palace officials were being notified of the situation, including private secretaries to both King Charles and Prince William. As news of the confrontation reached higher levels of palace management, Camilla realized that her carefully planned operation was falling apart. The longer the standoff continued, the more likely it became that other family members would learn about her attempt to access the vault without proper authorization. She had hoped for a quick, quiet operation that would be completed before anyone could question her actions. Thomas maintained his professional demeanor while internally preparing for various scenarios. He knew that the situation could escalate quickly, particularly if Camilla decided to force the issue by demanding immediate access. However, he also understood that his primary responsibility was to protect the vault's contents, which included items specifically designated for Prince William's family and future generations. The ancient stones of Windsor Castle had witnessed many power struggles over the centuries, but few as delicate as the one now unfolding in the vault's antechamber. The confrontation between royal authority and institutional protocol was about to determine not only immediate access to valuable assets, but also the future balance of power within the royal family itself. The sound of additional footsteps could be heard approaching from multiple directions, indicating that reinforcements were arriving for both sides of the conflict. The quiet operation that Camilla had envisioned was rapidly becoming a very public incident that would require careful management to avoid damaging the monarchy's reputation. The first reinforcements to arrive were palace officials rather than additional guards. Sir Edward Pemberton, the deputy private secretary to the king, appeared at the top of the staircase with an expression of barely controlled alarm. Behind him followed Lady Catherine Morrison, the keeper of the royal collection, whose responsibility included oversight of vault security protocols and inventory management. Sir Edward, a career civil servant who had navigated royal politics for over 20 years, immediately understood the gravity of the situation. His tall, thin frame moved with practiced efficiency as he descended the stone steps, his mind already calculating the potential consequences of whatever had brought the Queen Consort to the vault without proper authorization. His gray hair was perfectly styled despite the early hour, and his sharp blue eyes missed nothing as he assessed the scene before him. Lady Morrison, a renowned art historian and expert in royal collections, carried herself with the quiet authority that came from decades of protecting priceless artifacts. Her knowledge of every item in the royal vault was encyclopedic, and she had personally overseen the security upgrades that made unauthorized access virtually impossible. She understood better than anyone what Camilla might be seeking and why such access could not be permitted without proper procedures. "Your Majesty," Sir Edward said with a deep bow, his voice carefully modulated to convey respect while maintaining professional distance. "I understand there may be some confusion regarding vault access procedures. Perhaps we could discuss this matter in a more appropriate setting where all concerns can be properly addressed." Camilla turned to face the new arrivals, recognizing both as individuals who could potentially authorize her access if properly persuaded or intimidated. However, she also realized that their presence meant word of her vault visit was now spreading through the palace hierarchy. Time was running out for her to accomplish her mission quietly. "Sir Edward," she replied with regal authority, "there is no confusion whatsoever. I am here on official business to inspect certain items that require the attention of the Queen Consort during this transition period. This sergeant seems to believe that my authority is somehow insufficient, which I find both insulting and inappropriate." Lady Morrison stepped forward, her extensive experience with delicate situations evident in her calm demeanor. "Ma'am, if I may explain the vault access protocols that were established by Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth. The royal vault contains items that belong to the Crown Estate as well as personal property designated for specific heirs. Access requires documentation that clearly states which items are to be inspected and for what purpose." Thomas remained at his post, grateful for the arrival of senior officials who could handle the diplomatic aspects of the confrontation while he continued to focus on security. He handed the questionable authorization documents to Sir Edward, who began examining them with the trained eye of someone who had seen thousands of authentic royal documents throughout his career. The documents that Margaret had prepared were sophisticated forgeries, but they could not withstand the scrutiny of someone intimately familiar with authentic royal paperwork. Sir Edward immediately noticed that the authorization codes were from an outdated system that had been replaced 6 months earlier. Additionally, the signatures, while visually similar to those of authorized officials, lacked the specific pressure points and ink flow patterns that would indicate authenticity. As Sir Edward reviewed the papers, additional palace staff continued to arrive. The corridor that led to the vault was becoming increasingly crowded with officials, guards, and support personnel, all drawn by the unusual nature of the incident. Among them was Detective Inspector Sarah Matthews of the Royal Protection Unit, whose presence indicated that the situation was now being treated as a potential security breach. Detective Inspector Matthews, a seasoned investigator with 15 years of experience in royal security, immediately began documenting the scene and interviewing witnesses. Her professional training told her that attempted unauthorized access to the royal vault, regardless of who was involved, required thorough investigation to determine intent and prevent future incidents. Margaret, realizing that the situation was spiraling beyond her control, attempted to retreat from her prominent position beside Camilla. However, Detective Matthews had already identified her as a key participant in the incident and would require a full statement regarding her role in preparing the questionable documentation. The presence of so many officials in the confined space of the vault's antechamber created an atmosphere of barely controlled tension. Everyone understood that they were witnessing an unprecedented confrontation between royal authority and institutional protocol, with potentially far-reaching consequences for all involved. Sir Edward completed his examination of the documents and handed them back to Thomas with a subtle shake of his head that confirmed the sergeant's suspicions about their authenticity. The forgeries were sophisticated enough to fool casual inspection but could not withstand professional scrutiny from someone familiar with authentic royal documentation. "Your Majesty," Sir Edward said carefully, "while these documents appear to be official at first glance, I'm afraid they do not meet the specific requirements for vault access. The authorization codes are outdated, and several other elements suggest that these papers may not have been issued through proper channels." Camilla's face reddened with anger and embarrassment as she realized that her carefully planned operation had been completely exposed. The presence of so many witnesses meant that news of the incident would inevitably spread throughout the palace and potentially beyond its walls. Her reputation as Queen Consort, already fragile in some quarters, could be seriously damaged by this failed attempt at unauthorized access. Lady Morrison, sensing the need to defuse the situation before it escalated further, stepped forward with a diplomatic solution. "Perhaps Your Majesty could schedule a proper vault inspection at a more convenient time, with advance notice and appropriate documentation. I would be happy to facilitate such an arrangement through the proper channels." However, Detective Matthews had already begun documenting the incident as a potential security breach, which meant that any future vault access for Camilla would require additional scrutiny and approval from multiple levels of palace security. The inspector's presence also meant that the incident would be included in official security reports that could be reviewed by other members of the royal family. The ancient stones of Windsor Castle had witnessed many confrontations over the centuries, but few that involved such a complex mixture of family dynamics, legal protocols, and security concerns. The vault that had been designed to protect royal treasures for future generations had successfully defended itself against unauthorized access, even when that access was attempted by a member of the royal family itself. As the standoff continued, it became increasingly clear that Camilla's position as queen consort, while granting her considerable authority in most palace matters, was insufficient to override the specific security protocols that protected the royal vault. The confrontation was evolving into a test of whether personal authority could triumph over institutional safeguards designed to protect the monarchy's future. The arrival of even more senior officials was imminent, as word of the incident continued to spread through palace communication networks. The quiet morning at Windsor Castle was rapidly becoming a crisis that would require careful management to prevent damage to the royal family's reputation and internal relationships. The arrival of Sir Clive Alderton, the king's private secretary, marked a significant escalation in the seriousness of the situation. Sir Clive, a distinguished gentleman in his early 60s with silver hair and penetrating green eyes, had served the royal family through numerous crises and understood the delicate balance required to manage both family relationships and institutional integrity. His presence meant that King Charles himself was now aware of the incident at the vault. Behind Sir Clive came William Lawson, the Crown Estate's legal advisor, whose expertise in royal property law would be crucial in determining the legal implications of Camilla's attempted vault access. Lawson carried a thick briefcase containing relevant statutes, precedents, and documentation related to vault protocols and inheritance law within the royal family. The corridor outside the royal vault had now become an impromptu command center, with various officials clustering in small groups to discuss the unprecedented situation. The ancient stone walls, which had maintained their silence for centuries, now echoed with hushed conversations about protocol violations, security breaches, and potential family conflicts. Sir Clive approached Camilla with the diplomatic skill that had made him one of the most trusted advisors in the royal household. His expression remained neutral, but those who knew him well could detect the underlying concern in his measured movements and careful word choices. "Your Majesty," Sir Clive said with a formal bow, "His Majesty the King has asked me to assist in resolving this matter, with all appropriate discretion and respect for your position. Perhaps we could discuss the situation in a more private setting where all parties can speak freely without concern for protocol or public observation." Camilla recognized the diplomatic language Sir Clive was using, understanding that he was offering her a face-saving way to withdraw from the confrontation without admitting wrongdoing. However, she also realized that accepting his offer would mean abandoning her attempt to access the vault and potentially subjecting herself to further questioning about her motivations. Meanwhile, Detective Inspector Matthews had been conducting quiet interviews with various staff members who had witnessed different aspects of the incident. Her investigation was revealing a pattern of behavior that suggested the vault access attempt had been planned in advance, with careful preparation of forged documents and coordination with sympathetic staff members. Margaret, Camilla's secretary, found herself in an increasingly uncomfortable position as questions about the documentation became more specific and detailed. Her involvement in preparing the forged papers could potentially expose her to criminal charges, depending on how the investigation proceeded and what authorities ultimately decided about prosecution. Lady Morrison used the pause in confrontation to conduct a discreet inventory check of vault security systems, ensuring that no unauthorized access had actually occurred and that all protective measures remained intact. Her preliminary assessment confirmed that the vault's contents remained secure, but she was concerned about the precedent that might be set if high-ranking family members were allowed to override security protocols. Thomas Hartwell maintained his position at the vault entrance, his hand resting casually on his radio in case additional security measures became necessary. His training had prepared him for exactly this type of situation, where respect for royal authority had to be balanced against institutional responsibility to protect valuable assets and maintain security protocols. The legal advisor Lawson was reviewing documents that clearly outlined the specific items within the vault that were designated for Prince William's family line. These included jewelry that had belonged to Princess Diana, which was specifically bequeathed to her sons and their families, as well as certain properties and financial instruments that were part of the direct succession planning. Among the most sensitive items that Camilla had been seeking were documents related to the Cambridge title and associated estates. These properties, which would eventually pass to Prince George as part of his inheritance, represented significant financial assets that could not be redirected without specific legal procedures and approval from multiple authorities. Sir Clive was well aware that the incident had implications far beyond the immediate confrontation at the vault. News of Camilla's unauthorized access attempt could potentially damage relationships within the royal family, particularly with Prince William and Catherine, whose children's inheritance was being protected by the very security protocols that had been violated. The private secretary also understood that the incident reflected deeper tensions within the royal family about Camilla's role and authority as queen consort. While her position granted her considerable influence in most palace matters, it did not extend to overriding safeguards that had been specifically established to protect the inheritance rights of future generations. Detective Inspector Matthews completed her preliminary interviews and approached Sir Clive with a brief summary of her findings. The evidence clearly indicated that the access attempt had been premeditated, with forged documentation prepared specifically to circumvent normal security procedures. The question now was how to proceed with an investigation that involved a member of the royal family. As discussions continued in hushed tones throughout the crowded corridor, word of the incident began to spread beyond the immediate participants. Palace staff members who were not directly involved started to learn about the confrontation through the informal communication networks that operated within the castle's walls. The king's equerry arrived with a message requesting Sir Clive's immediate presence for a private consultation about the vault incident. This development indicated that King Charles was taking the situation seriously enough to require real-time updates and advice about how to manage both the immediate crisis and its potential long-term consequences. Prince William's private secretary also appeared on the scene, having been alerted to the incident because of its implications for his family's inheritance rights. The presence of representatives from multiple royal households emphasized the seriousness of the situation and the need for careful coordination to prevent damage to family relationships. The vault incident was rapidly evolving from a simple security confrontation into a complex diplomatic challenge that would require delicate handling to preserve both institutional integrity and family harmony. The ancient walls of Windsor Castle had witnessed many power struggles, but few that involved such intricate questions of authority, protocol, and inheritance rights within the modern royal family. As the various officials continued their discussions and investigations, it became increasingly clear that the incident would have lasting consequences for how vault security was managed and how family members' access to royal assets would be controlled in the future. The confrontation that had begun as Camilla's private attempt to access certain valuable items had become a defining moment in the establishment of clear boundaries around royal inheritance and institutional protection. The resolution of the vault incident came through a carefully orchestrated series of private meetings and diplomatic negotiations that took place over the following 48 hours. King Charles, after receiving detailed briefings from Sir Clive Alderton and reviewing the security reports prepared by Detective Inspector Matthews, made the decision to handle the matter as a family issue rather than a criminal investigation. In a private meeting held in the King's study at Windsor Castle, Charles spoke directly with Camilla about the incident and its implications. The conversation, while remaining confidential, was described by palace insiders as frank and productive, with both parties acknowledging the need for clearer guidelines regarding access to royal assets and the importance of maintaining institutional safeguards. Camilla issued a formal statement through her private secretary, expressing regret for any confusion regarding vault access procedures and acknowledging the importance of maintaining proper protocols for the protection of royal assets. The statement carefully avoided any admission of wrongdoing, while demonstrating respect for the security measures that had prevented unauthorized access. The forged authorization documents were quietly destroyed after being thoroughly analyzed by security experts, who used them to identify potential weaknesses in the documentation systems that could be exploited by future bad actors. Margaret, Camilla's secretary, was reassigned to other duties within the palace but was not subjected to criminal prosecution, in keeping with the king's decision to treat the matter as an internal family issue. Thomas Hartwell and his security team received commendations for their professional handling of the situation and their unwavering commitment to protecting royal assets despite pressure from high-ranking family members. The incident was used as a case study in security training programs to demonstrate the importance of following protocols regardless of who might be attempting to circumvent them. Sir Edward Pemberton worked with Lady Morrison and other officials to strengthen vault access procedures, implementing additional verification requirements, and creating clearer documentation about which family members had authority to access specific types of royal property. These new protocols were designed to prevent future confusion while ensuring that legitimate access requests could be processed efficiently. The most significant long-term consequence of the incident was the establishment of a formal Royal Assets Protection Committee, chaired by the Lord Chamberlain and including representatives from the Crown Estate, the Royal Collection Trust, and senior palace officials. This committee was tasked with overseeing access to all royal properties and valuables, ensuring that inheritance rights were protected while maintaining appropriate flexibility for legitimate family needs. Prince William and Catherine were privately briefed about the incident and its implications for their children's inheritance. While they expressed concern about the attempted unauthorized access, they also acknowledged the king's efforts to handle the matter diplomatically while strengthening protective measures for the future. The jewelry that had belonged to Princess Diana, which was among the items Camilla had sought to access, was formally placed under enhanced security protocols with specific documentation outlining its intended recipients. This jewelry was explicitly designated for Catherine and her children, with clear legal documentation preventing any future attempts at unauthorized access or redistribution. The properties and financial instruments associated with Prince George's eventual inheritance were also subjected to enhanced legal protections, with multiple layers of approval required for any changes to their status or management. These measures were designed to ensure that the direct line of succession would not face similar challenges in the future. Detective Inspector Matthews compiled a comprehensive report on the incident that was filed with Palace Security Archives, but was not shared with external law enforcement agencies. The report included recommendations for preventing similar incidents and improving communication between different levels of palace security and administration. The incident had a subtle but noticeable impact on Camilla's role within the royal family. While she continued to fulfill her duties as queen consort, there was a greater emphasis on ensuring that her activities involving royal assets were properly coordinated with relevant officials. This represented a refinement of her position rather than a reduction in her overall authority. Palace staff members who had witnessed various aspects of the incident were required to sign enhanced confidentiality agreements, ensuring that details of the confrontation would not become public knowledge. The royal family's reputation for maintaining privacy around internal matters was crucial to preventing the incident from becoming a public relations crisis. The ancient royal vault itself underwent security upgrades that incorporated lessons learned from the incident. New biometric systems were installed that could differentiate between routine access and emergency situations, while maintaining respect for the historical character of the storage areas. King Charles used the incident as an opportunity to clarify inheritance protocols throughout the royal family, ensuring that all members understood which assets were personal property and which belonged to the crown estate or were designated for specific heirs. This clarification helped prevent future misunderstandings while preserving family relationships. The resolution of the vault incident demonstrated the royal family's ability to manage internal conflicts while maintaining institutional integrity. The careful balance between respecting family authority and protecting inherited assets became a model for handling similar situations in the future. 6 months after the incident, Lady Morrison reported that vault security had been operating smoothly, with no further unauthorized access attempts. The enhanced protocols had actually improved efficiency for legitimate access requests while maintaining the highest levels of protection for valuable royal assets. The incident ultimately strengthened rather than weakened the protections around Prince George's inheritance and the royal assets designated for future generations. By successfully defending against unauthorized access, the security systems proved their effectiveness and earned additional respect from all members of the royal family. The confrontation between Camilla and the palace guard had evolved from a potential crisis into an opportunity for institutional improvement. The royal family emerged from the incident with clearer protocols, stronger security measures, and renewed commitment to protecting the monarchy's assets for future generations while maintaining appropriate respect for current family members. The ancient stones of Windsor Castle continued to guard their secrets, now protected by both traditional security measures and modern protocols that had been tested and proven effective in defending against even the most sophisticated unauthorized access attempts. The royal vault remained secure, its contents preserved for their intended recipients and future generations of the royal family.